CBS, America's #1 independent television network, presents the following sports exclusive.
Post down, long ball, it's going to go for a touchdown, the game's over. Webster Swatter.
And Elway going for the bomb right at the outset. Throws, caught by McNeil, touchdown.
Montana looking, throwing in the end zone.
Welcome to Basically a Football Show.
Basically a Football Show. Week 10 in college, Week 9 in the National Football League. But we're going to start in college as we have the last few weeks because it's been more entertaining. It's been better. There's been some interesting results, especially over the weekend. First playoff rankings came out, so we had some games of true, real importance and some teams that, well, dropped the ball. Speaking of teams dropping the ball, let's start on Tuesday. All the way back on Tuesday. We had some Tuesday night maction. Your ranks at the time, and undefeated at the time, Toledo Rockets. You said it was going to be a tough game against Northern Illinois, and the Huskies went into the Glass Bowl and knocked off the Rockets 32-27. Do you have a postmortem on your Toledo Rockets and their playoff chances?
You know, this is 6 in a row now they've lost to Northern Illinois. And they led throughout most of the game, and it got to be, I don't know, maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes left in the game. And I just knew. I could just tell by what was going on. I thought Northern Illinois is going to pull this out, and they did. And the Rockets, I don't know what it is. They can beat a team like Arkansas. They can knock off pretty good MAC teams. But, man, Northern Illinois just has their number, and it's just another case of that. I really thought with the Rockets being able to hold the score down to a reasonable amount that they would be okay. But, nope, Northern Illinois just has their number. There's no other way I can describe it. I don't know that Northern Illinois is a better team necessarily, but, boy, they sure know how to beat the Toledo Rockets, and I guess we'll try again next year. Simple as that.
And now Northern Illinois leading the MAC 4-1 with the tiebreaker over the Rockets.
As always.
We'll step in on Thursday real quick. Is number 6 Baylor. They traveled to Manhattan, Kansas to play Kansas State. Kansas State winless in the Big 12. Not a very good football team. But Baylor only beat them by 7 points. And had to get a late interception to really lock down this game for Baylor to stay undefeated, 31-24.
I'm going to do something I've been tempted to do all season with the college football stuff that we talk about. I don't think the Big 12 teams are that good.
No.
I think they put up a lot of points, and they're pretty to look at. But you know what? At the end of the day, I just don't think they're any damn good. And Baylor showed that, and I'm sure we'll talk about TCU in a minute. But all of a sudden, I'm just going, you know what? I don't think any of these teams deserve to have serious playoff consideration. I think they're the worst conference in football.
And the thing is, we can't measure them against anybody because they don't play anybody in the out-of-conference.
Right.
Baylor hasn't played anyone that of consequence. TCU didn't really play anybody of consequence. They struggled to beat Minnesota in the season opener, I remember. And I think Oklahoma State might have played somebody from the SEC, but I don't think it matters. And, they look really great when they're playing each other. And I don't know, they put up these big points, but it's just surprising when Baylor dropping 70 on everybody, and Kansas State's 0-5 in the conference, and they score 31 points, only beat them by 7. It's just...
Well, you know what it might have been? Maybe Kansas State can play a little bit of defense, because that seems to be all it takes to beat one of these teams. If you've got a halfway decent defense, you may not win, but you're at least going to be in the game. But, yeah, I think everybody falls in love with those 60, 70-point games that Baylor and TCU, not so much this year, but last year. And they go, these teams must be great, but you know what? I don't think they are. I think they're capable of scoring a lot of points, and that's it. If you can play defense, you're going to beat them. Easy as that.
And Baylor, they were 6, and even though they won, the way these playoff rankings work, I mean, you saw TCU was undefeated and they were 8. Baylor's going to drop.
I think so.
In the eyes of the committee, you can't go and do that to a team that's winless in your conference. They're going to drop to 8. They might drop to 9, maybe. Baylor's not sticking in as one of those last 2. They're not there. They're just not.
No, I think what you're going to see happen probably is LSU, even though they lost, will probably still hang. I don't know. We'll see. But I just don't think these Big 12 teams are worthy of consideration at this point. Sorry.
No. Also on Thursday, Mississippi State also ranked. They knocked off Missouri 31-13. Missouri dealing with a lot of different things with that program. So no surprise that they go down.
Probably get to the gist of that on basically a sports show this week. But, yeah, a lot of stuff going on at the University of Missouri right now.
Temple bounces back from its loss to Notre Dame with a 60-40 win over Temple, or over SMU. Temple is still undefeated in the conference, which is important as we talk about some of the other American Conference teams that played this weekend.
Right.
On to Saturday, though, and we start with the number one team in the country, your Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, I'm not used to that.
Number one in the country playing number 16 Florida State. Really a great game to watch. It was tight throughout. Clemson looked like they squandered an opportunity going into halftime. They spiked the ball on third down because the quarterback said, he like goes over to the sideline. Watson looks over to Dabo Swinney and is like, I thought you said to spike it. And it's like, no, we have a timeout and there's 30 seconds left, you idiot. So they kick a field goal, but in the second half, Clemson took over and pulled away for a 23-13 win over the Seminoles. Clemson undefeated. They've knocked off the last big test on their schedule, really, and it should be clean sailing into a playoff spot for Clemson, most likely.
Sure looks that way, and, I really thought this game was starting to look an awful lot like we might see finally Clemson this year. But, again, They pulled it out and they won, so I'm beginning to think they might be legit this time around.
They might be legit. Again, we've gone over their schedule already. It's pretty easy, and right now, their conference championship game opponent looks to be North Carolina if the Tar Heels finish out strong. So
yeah, but that Tar Heels team, I don't think I'd go to sleep on them. They're pretty good.
Yeah, they're not half bad. So Clemson probably smooth sailing into the conference championship game for the ACC, and I actually they'll probably stay at number one. Maybe they fall down to number two just because of who we're going to talk about in a second and how impressive they were. But I'm fine with Clemson being 1-2.
Yeah,
I'm with that now.
As the season progresses, the more I'm starting to believe in this team because they have had quite a few opportunities to do what they normally do, and they haven't done it yet, and that could be the difference. So, yeah, I'm okay with them being at number one right now. Not used to it yet, but I'm okay with it.
Right, and they are undefeated, so maybe they stay up there. But this would be a first, I think, that since we've seen it, that it's possibly you have a one-loss team because of a huge victory on Saturday. They could move right back into the number one spot. Now, Greg, how many times have we had the conversation after Alabama lost a game that this is it, they're done, end of the Alabama dynasty, Nick Saban's going to retire, this is the it, this is the end, Alabama's reign of terror is over? Well,
we used to have that conversation a lot, but of late we haven't had it so much. We've let everybody else have it, and we just keep saying you can say what you want, but at the end of the day, they're going to be here, and here they are again.
And as much as I liked what Clemson did, Alabama might just be the best team in the country again. A 30-16 win over LSU. Alabama holds the Heisman Trophy favorite at the time, Leonard Fournette, to 31 yards of offense. He scored a touchdown for LSU, but it was on an 18-yard carry. So outside of those 18 yards on that one play, 18 carries for 13 yards for the LSU running back. Derrick Henry went off, 210 yards, 3 touchdowns. And LSU's passing game wasn't there. It's something we talked about all year. If they do stop Leonard Fournette, team's got to pass the ball. They couldn't do it. Alabama's defense was great in a 30-16 win over the Tigers. Alabama, after another SEC loss with Ole Miss, Alabama right back in control of its own destiny again.
Absolutely, just like always. I don't know that the committee is ready at this point to put Alabama at number one.
But if they did, would you argue it?
I don't think I'd argue with it too much. I mean, because you look at the other three teams they're in there with.
Right.
Do we think Ohio State's better than Alabama? No. Do we think Clemson is? No. Do we think who was the other one? I can't remember now. The fourth team.
It was LSU.
LSU. Yeah, well, we know LSU.
Number 5 was Notre Dame.
Yeah, so no, I think if you just want to look at it, I think Alabama's probably the best team in the country right now, again, as usual.
It's just amazing, they lose a game to Ole Miss, and you think, okay, well, they're not in control of their own destiny. And yes, they were up at number 4, but at the time, Ole Miss was still in control of the SEC West. So you could have had a situation where Alabama didn't even win its division, and could still make the college football playoff.
Right.
But they just keep doing what they're doing, and they get some luck with Ole Miss losing. We'll talk about that too in a minute. But things just keep coming up Alabama.
Well, that's not at some point, maybe you want to say, boy, they're just lucky or whatever, but this isn't luck. They're just this good.
They're just good.
And they're well coached, and they're just always going to be there. It's going to take, they're going to have a 3-loss season to really seriously be out of consideration, and that's just not going to happen this year.
I don't think it's going to happen, at least until Nick Saban actually retires.
Yes.
He's Alabama.
I agree with that.
It's just not going to happen.
I agree.
They're a factory. They're going to keep doing what they're doing. So super impressive. Alabama, again, one of the favorites in the country, just like clockwork.
This game went exactly like we predicted. If they stop Fournette and LSU can't pass, it's over. It's exactly what happened.
I was amazed at how well they contained him. It's not like Fournette even got to like 80 yards or 100.
No.
They were kind of hung around. They shut him down.
Completely.
Just completely shut him down.
Completely.
How does this affect his Heisman standing? Because as far as I can see, I don't know if there's really another player in the country. Maybe Derrick Henry in this game can challenge him.
That's what I was going to throw in there.
The Clemson quarterback is up there, Deshaun Watson. But he was far and away the Heisman favorite going into the weekend, and with this, failing in a big game like that, it definitely hurts his standing.
I mean, what it basically showed everybody was that if you have a defense that can stop him, he's easily stopped. I mean, I know that sounds really simple, but
I think that's kind of undercutting Alabama's defense, though.
But that's what I mean.
Probably the best defense in the country.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and they're good enough, and they shut him down completely. I don't know. We'll see. I think Derrick Henry's going to definitely get into the conversation now. Do you throw out Fournette's entire season over one game? I don't know if I would do that, but I'm not a Heisman voter, so we'll just have to see how it plays out. But I think it will damage it a little bit. I don't think it knocks him out of it, but I think it brings a couple other guys into the conversation more so than they had been up to this point.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how they fall. And, if LSU, it is still a 14-point loss. So I don't know how that affects their playoff standing at all. If the committee says, well, maybe outside of Fournette, LSU's not all that great. And they, then they shift them down. But
I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see Notre Dame take their spot in the top 4 this week.
Oh yeah, they're not going to be in the top 4 anymore.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's pretty sure. But if they fall out of the top 10, I'll be interested to see.
I don't think that'll happen, but I think they're out of the playoff contention. I think Notre Dame slides into that spot this week.
Yeah. Does LSU stay ahead of Baylor?
If it were me, yes, I think so. Do we really think that Baylor could do? I mean, forget Alabama. Do we think that Baylor could put 60 points on LSU? I don't think so.
No.
I'm sorry. I've lost a lot of respect for those. I never had a lot of respect to begin with for the Big 12 teams, and at this point, I'm just going, you know what? It's all smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
We saw it last year in the bowl games. I mean, I think, who was it? Michigan State knocked off one of them. I can't remember. Was it Baylor? I don't remember, but yeah it's all smoke and mirrors.
Well, but TCU also beat Ole Miss in the bowl game.
Yeah, but I don't think that Ole Miss is, I don't think Ole Miss has ever been as good as we like to think they are. I think they're pretty good, but I don't think that that's as impressive a win as a lot of people think it is. I think Ole Miss is good, but I think the minute that they do something big like beat Alabama, we want to heap praise upon them and talk about how great they are, and I just don't think they're as great as we think they are. But that's for another conversation.
I think LSU will also be helped by the fact that some of the back end of this top 10 and early in the early teens of the rankings, they lost, they fell out. So
right.
LSU can't fall further behind the teams that already lost. So I think they'll be fine. Moving on to your Ohio State Buckeyes, dealing with the not having their new starting quarterback JT Barrett out because of an OVI, operating a vehicle while intoxicated charge, instead of just driving it or whatever. Is that just like an Ohio law that's different? It's the same thing as like a DUI?
Yes, it's exactly the same thing as a DUI.
It's not like he's just sitting in a car that's running. Was he driving it, or was he just like sitting on the side of the road?
That I don't know, but I know that Ohio has designations for those things, but an OVI isn't like better than a DUI. It's just a different designation for it.
Okay. So Cardell Jones comes in, and Ohio State continues to struggle with him at quarterback this year. They beat Minnesota, but not by the margin that you probably would have expected, a 28-14 win, although Minnesota did get their 14 points in the fourth quarter, so it's not like they were with them the whole way, but a struggle kind of for the Buckeyes. I just got to ask, is this the same Cardell Jones that we saw last year? Because it's amazing, right? This guy, the guy that we see this year, is nothing at all like the guy we saw last year. I don't know how that happens, but if the Buckeyes have to rely on Cardell Jones, they're in a lot of trouble. And the fact that they lost a week with J.D. Barrett is going to hurt for consistency and all that. Mm-hmm. And things aren't getting any easier as we go down the road here. So they need to get this figured out. And J.T. Barrett needs to get his act together, quit driving drunk, and let's make sure this doesn't happen again. Well, how long is he not going to play?
I think he's only out for this week. He's back next week. You want to look at it and go, well, they're going to discipline him and all that, but let's be realistic about this. He lost a game. I think he was suspended for 2 weeks. One of those was a bye week, so it didn't really matter. He's going to lose one game. He's going to be right back at the helm next week, so it should be fine. But the Buckeyes are clearly a better team with J.T. Barrett at quarterback than they are with Cardell Jones. Mm-hmm. I think I'd rather see Braxton Miller at this point than Jones.
Yeah, well, and things are still easy for Ohio State next week. They're at Illinois.
Yeah.
But then they got to have him back for those final 2 games if they want to win them against Michigan State and Michigan.
He'll be back for those. Barring an injury, he'll be the starting quarterback for those. Urban Meyer's got to have figured out by now that Jones is not the guy.
Yeah.
Put him in a fullback or something. Make things interesting. I don't know, but don't have him taking any more snaps.
No. Moving on down the rankings, number 5 was the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and they were tight a little early, but not really with Pittsburgh. They pull away for a 42-30 win over the Pitt Panthers.
Pitt's pretty good team, not bad team. Notre Dame, nice, easy win for them.
Yeah, Deshaun Kaiser, 5 touchdown passes. And he's a true freshman that had to come in after Malik Zaire got injured in that Virginia game, and he's picked it up, and he's been fantastic for the Irish so far.
I am almost beginning to believe in this Notre Dame team. Mm-hmm. I think they might be this good, but we thought a lot of teams are this good until they end up playing somebody that's really good. But, yeah, I believe in them. I think that the Stanford game is basically that's where it begins and ends for Notre Dame at this point, for both teams, really.
Yeah. Again, Notre Dame just has Wake Forest, BC before their clash with Stanford in late November.
If they run the table, they will make the playoff.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, because I think one way or the other, they're going to be in the top 4 this week, I think.
I agree.
Because who was 6? 6 was Baylor. Baylor's going to fall. 7 was Michigan State. We'll talk about them in a second. 8 was TCU. We'll talk about them in a second. 9 is Iowa, please. 10 was Florida, who scored 9 points. So I think – and LSU's not going to stay in the top 4, so Notre Dame.
I think Notre Dame's in. Yeah, I think we're going to have 2 one-loss teams in the top 4 this week.
Be something, huh?
Yeah.
So we already talked about number 6, Baylor. Number 7 was the Michigan State Spartans. They finally go down 39-38 to Nebraska with a weird ending to this game. There was something with the referee. I didn't catch it exactly. Did you see with the guy running out of bounds and the referees calling it, not calling it?
I heard there was controversy at the end of the game. I have not seen it.
Okay. Well, then we're going to sound really ridiculous. I didn't see that part, but I did see the end. There's 9 seconds left. Michigan State's down by 1. They're trying to get in field goal range. So the quarterback, Connor Cook, drops back for a pass. There's only like 7 seconds. And I'm sitting there watching it on a TV in a bar, and it's on mute, and I just say, throw the ball. Throw the ball. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. And he throws it with 1 second left.
Oh, my.
Goes out of bounds. Time expires. Game over. Terrible clock management for Michigan State. And just in the same way that they probably shouldn't have won the Michigan game, they probably should have won this one, and they lose to Nebraska 39-38.
I think that they kind of were owed this one after what happened with Michigan. See, I think Michigan got their game back last week with Minnesota doing the boneheaded thing. And the football gods have straightened out the universe. Now, Michigan State lost the game they probably should have won. I was never really sold on this Michigan State team all season. I think they're good, but I never thought they were at the Ohio State level in the Big Ten. The Big Ten is better than it used to be, but it's still not top to bottom strong like a lot of other conferences are. But I was never sold on Michigan State. I just watched them struggle with too many different teams. And to go out, and lose to Nebraska, who was 3-6 coming into this game, this is bad. I mean, you can say, well, it was only a 1-point win and all that, but let's be honest about it. If Michigan was the number 7 team in the country, they should have no trouble with a team that's 3-6. I don't care where they're playing the game at. And they had a whole lot of problems with this. So
yeah, Nebraska 19 points in the fourth quarter to eventually take that lead too.
Yeah.
So kind of blowing it, Michigan State.
Pretty much, yeah.
But I think we're okay with that. I think we both kind of felt the same about Michigan State, that they should have been lower the entire time. Now that they lost, they can finally take that tumble that they've probably needed.
Yeah, they're going to fall a good long way after this one, I think.
Move on down to who was number 8 as TCU marched into Stillwater, take on the number 14 Oklahoma State Cowboys. And boy, oh boy.
Did you see any of this game?
Yeah.
Don't let that score fool you. It was never, ever this close.
No,
never.
It was 28-9 at half. Oklahoma State ends up winning it 49-29 over the Horned Frogs. Trevon Boykin, despite 444 yards of offense, he looked terrible. Interception after interception. And the Cowboys, they prevailed. They capitalized on those turnovers, a couple pick sixes. And TCU goes down. And defense, ultimately, funnily, in a high-scoring game, too, is what does in one of the Big 12 favorites.
Well, that's the thing about this game is that Oklahoma State came out and punched them right in the mouth. And, I mean, let's be honest about it. The Cowboys just kicked their asses for the better part of that game. Don't let the score make it. It was never, ever even this close at 20 points, I don't think. And Oklahoma State just dominated TCU in that first half. I mean, they were just all over them. And now you got Oklahoma State at 9-0 with a win over a highly ranked team. What does this do to their chances? Do they move up in the?
Well, let's think about it now. So it depends on how far LSU falls, but Michigan State's out of the top 10.
Right.
TCU's out of the top 10 for sure. Baylor's going to drop down a bit. Iowa 1, Florida 1. Stanford's probably going to be the top 10. They should by now. Utah also won.
I got to penalize Florida for that win. I mean, yes, they won a game, but at home in the swamp, and you beat Vanderbilt by 2.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to move up, but they certainly could be. Basically, they could be jumped by Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
I got to think Oklahoma State slides in there somewhere. It depends on how far LSU falls and how far they want to penalize Baylor.
I think Oklahoma State has put themselves in a position where if they win out, they should probably – and as much as I don't respect the Big 12, eventually I don't know that they're going to – if they go undefeated, I think you got to consider them because they'll have knocked off TCU. They'll have beaten Baylor and Oklahoma.
Yeah, they still have Baylor and Oklahoma left on their schedule. Both those games at home. They're just – next week is their last road game at Iowa State.
Right.
And they get Baylor at home, who's going to be ranked, and Oklahoma at home, who's going to be ranked. So, yeah, I mean, if Oklahoma State can run the table, they're going to be in consideration. But I think no matter what happens, I think it's gonna end up being the Pac-12 champion or the Big 12 champion fighting for the playoff spot. And I got to give the edge to the Pac-12 because I just, who's their out-of-conference schedule for Oklahoma State? Central Michigan.
Yeah, it's not very
Central
good.
Arkansas, Texas San Antonio, and then the rest of the Big 12 slate. And we're all collectively down on the Big 12.
Here's the thing, though, and I don't think there are too many pins that have to fall for Oklahoma State to get into the thick of this. Ohio State still has to play a good Michigan State team. They've got to play Michigan at Michigan. Mm-hmm. And believe me, there's nothing that Jim Harbaugh's Michigan Wolverines would like better than to finish off Ohio State. And I think that's very much in the realm of possibility. And maybe you say it might come down to the Pac-12 and the Big 12, but I'm thinking at the end of the day, the Big 10 may be the one that's on the outside looking in again this year. We'll just have to wait and see. But it's going to get fun here as we go along.
Yeah, things are tightening up, and the conference champions are finally moving, or the teams that are leading the conference are moving up, which is good. And I mean, Notre Dame throws a wrench into this too because they don't have a conference.
This is
true. If they keep winning, then they're going to be right there.
Yeah, if they win out, they're in. Because they're going to have some pretty good notches on their belt if they finish out with a 10-1 or 11-1 record. They're going to be in the contest or in the playoffs.
Because assuming things kind of stay stable, you're going to have Clemson up there, you're going to have Alabama up there, you're going to have Notre Dame up there. That's 3 out of 4.
Right.
Then you have Big 10 champ, Big 12 champ, Pac-12 champ.
I think that the Big 10 champ has to be undefeated. I think. It has to be Ohio State or I guess Iowa, either one. If they're going to be in it, they have to be undefeated. Because a one-loss Big Ten team with the competition out there, I don't think is going to get in if everything holds the way it is right now. Mm-hmm. It's going to be fun. It's almost harder to predict than it was last year.
Yeah, there's just so much fluidity. It's just there's no team that's really proven itself to be this is the best team in college football. It is an elite school. It is the favorite no matter what.
Yeah, and you got to remember too, last year it was very competitive and confusing, and we didn't have Notre Dame in the picture last year.
Right.
So now you throw in an X factor in Notre Dame, and it's going to be wild. But that's what makes the playoffs so great.
I think the way it worked, we had the SEC was weird, and Alabama eventually did exactly what it's doing this season. Lost to Ole Miss, kept winning its games, ended up back in the top 4. Oregon was by far and away one of the best teams in the country. Florida State was undefeated and a reigning, national champion, but not impressive. But we gave them the benefit of the doubt.
That's what Ohio State's getting this year. It's the exact same thing.
And then Ohio State snuck around and knocked out both TCU and Baylor at the very end. So I think there was more separation last year, but it's more up for grabs this year, definitely.
I'm just thinking that 2 weeks ago, we're not even talking about Oklahoma State having a shot at this. And all of a sudden now, if they win out, they've got a good argument. So we'll see.
I think it's also because at the time, Baylor and TCU just looked like these unbeatable juggernauts. That's like, yeah, Oklahoma State, that's nice and cute, but you're going to lose by 30 to both of them too. Not the case now.
No.
Oklahoma State.
No, and the way they dominated TCU in that first half, that was just impressive to me. That was just, It wasn't an upset. It was just clearly the better team won that game, and I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Funnily, it was the same halftime score as it was last year, but flipped.
Yeah?
TCU was up 24-9 or 28-9 at half last year in Fort Worth. Continuing on down the rankings, we mentioned them real quick, but the Iowa Hawkeyes are still undefeated. I think they're really going to – we were a year off. I think they're going to pull this thing off and make it to the Big Ten title game. They've got they knock off Indiana 35-27. It was tight, but not too bad.
I'm going to tell you something. This Indiana team now they're not good, but they're
feisty.
They're feisty. They are not a pushover this year. I'm going to give them some credit. I know that we want to say it's the Big Ten, and the good teams in the Big Ten aren't as good as we think they are. But this Indiana team is tough. They're not an easy out for anybody.
They're 0-5 in the conference. Only Maryland is 0-5, but Indiana's 4-5 overall. Maryland's 2-7. Indiana's not bad.
Right.
But they just got a bad luck of the draw. They're on the bad end of some of these tight games. The Hoosiers will start making some noise in the next.
Well, they played Ohio State tough. They played Iowa tough. They played somebody else tough. I can't remember.
Michigan State
tough. Yeah. So yeah.
Iowa has Minnesota, Purdue, Nebraska left before a potential Big Ten title game.
Minnesota maybe might be an upset alert game, but other than that, they should cruise.
Well, either way, they have a 1-game lead over Wisconsin for the division title. And they have the tiebreaker over Wisconsin. So Iowa effectively has a 2-game lead in the Big Ten West right now.
And I think they're good enough to knock off Ohio State if they get to the conference championship. I do. This is a team. This is they're old school football, man. It's just we'll see.
I don't know.
We'll see.
We mentioned Florida, briefly. 9-7 win over Vanderbilt. That Florida defense, very, very good. The offense.
Not so much. This looks like Vanderbilt, Florida's bullpen just shut them down, or Vanderbilt's bullpen couldn't shut down Florida. I mean, it was not. I don't know though. I got to take away some points from Florida for that because the defense is great and all that, but you should beat Vanderbilt by more than 2 at home.
Yeah, and Vanderbilt was Florida's up 6-0, then it's 7-6 Vanderbilt for a large portion of that game before Florida gets a fourth quarter third field goal. So I don't know what to do with Florida. You want them to be good because they're Florida and they're 8-1. They're going to be the SEC East Division champion. They already clinched that. But if they play Alabama in the SEC title game,
forget it.
It's not going to be a thing.
Forget it. Yeah.
Number 11 is Stanford, and thankfully all the teams in front of them lost after a 42-10 win. Stanford will get pushed right back up in the conversation. They're going to be in the thick of it finally after being kind of disrespected the whole year after their early loss to Northwestern.
Well, when we were doing the first playoff rankings last week, we thought that Stanford had to have some things go their way. They could play their way back into it, but they got a lot of help this week by teams in front of them losing. So that makes it even easier for them at this point to play their way back into consideration.
They're 8-1. They're 7-0 in the conference, and as long as Northwestern keeps winning, which they did this week, that one loss is going to look better than some other teams' one loss. They're fine. It surprised me that they were all the way down at 11, but they're going to be back in the top 10 this week, and
especially when you hear people talk that they all talk about how the Pac-12 just cannibalizes itself, and then yet everybody's talking about there's too many good teams and this and that. Yet when it comes time for the rankings, no one wants to give Stanford any respect. I don't understand that.
Yeah, they keep cannibalizing themselves, but guess what? Stanford's 8-1. Utah's 8-1. There's a clear top 2 in that conference, and they're pulling away from everybody else.
Right.
They're gonna win their divisions. I don't expect Utah to lose to UCLA. It's gonna be fine. The Pac-12 is gonna be right there.
I think so too.
Mentioned Utah. They were number 12, right behind Stanford. They could probably move up into the top 10 as well with a 34-23 win over Washington. They stay 8-1, 5-1 in the conference.
Yeah.
But the other big upset, and this is for the group of 5, Memphis. We were surprised they were all the way up at 13. They were pulling away from the rest of their 5 competition. We even were throwing out some hypothesis of if Memphis goes undefeated, are they a playoff team?
Well, there was a scenario where they would have had to have been seriously considered, but they took care of that for us on Saturday.
You think that if they win this game with all the chaos that happened in front of them, they could be right there in the conversation. Mm-hmm. But they lose their opportunity. They lose big to Navy.
Navy, who's 7-1, by the way.
7-1, undefeated in conference play.
Yeah.
I read a thing now where Navy potentially, if they win the rest of their conference games, they'll win the conference, they'll be undefeated, and they'll be the best group of 5 team left because they still have to play Houston and Temple in them.
See, but I just want to go back to the first game we talked about. How big was this game for the Rockets against Northern Illinois?
Yeah.
Now, I mean, but anyway. But yeah, and this was another one, too, where Navy, this wasn't like a end of the game upset. They just beat their asses the whole way through.
Right. Well, the thing with Navy, though, is if that happens, the Army-Navy game is after the final rankings come out.
Wow.
So in theory, not that it would probably happen because Navy's beat Army every year for
not only that, but there's no way Navy's going to make the Final Four. They're just not.
Well, no, not that they make the Final Four, but they could potentially get knocked down. Like if they lose to Army, it could affect the rankings. Like they whatever bowl they get selected to could have the option of declining them if they lose.
I see.
So because if Navy gets up there, they have to get picked. And wouldn't that be amazing to see one of the service academies in those New Year's Day bowls?
I think it'd be great. I would love it.
Yeah, that would be pretty special to have. So Navy 7-1, 5-0 in conference, and they knock off highly overrated. Well, not highly overrated. They still beat Ole Miss. And say what you want, but their one loss. Navy's one loss. Notre Dame. They still have to play. Well, they don't play Temple. They still have to play Houston, who's on the road at Houston. And Houston is still ranked. So SMU, Tulsa, and then Army. Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's great to see them that actually, and looking at the possibility of a New Year's Day bowl game. Yeah. I think that would be incredible.
And this isn't like Navy being independent and kind of messing around. This is Navy. They joined a conference in their first year in this conference. They're undefeated. That's great. That's really awesome. I'm
telling you, man. Nobody runs that crazy triple option like the service academies do. They've been doing it. They've been doing it forever, and it's just ingrained in them. So yeah,
keep going, midshipmen.
That's right.
Oklahoma knocks off Iowa State. Oklahoma, keep going. That'll help everybody else. Michigan beats Rutgers, who hasn't. Another upset. Ole Miss. Just a dumb game by Ole Miss. They lose 53-52 to Arkansas in overtime. Arkansas, decent. Ole Miss.
Yeah, but here's the thing about Ole Miss, though. How does this make that Alabama loss all of a sudden starts looking a little bit worse as we go along here?
Maybe.
Yeah. Because you had Memphis beat Ole Miss, and then Ole Miss turns around and loses to Arkansas, who lost to Toledo, which I think if we do the extrapolations here, Toledo turns out to be the best team in the country somehow. But
wait, yeah. Toledo beat Arkansas, who beat Ole Miss, who beat Alabama. Greg, right. You beat your alma mater's beating Alabama 2 years ago.
I want to know why my Rockets are in there right next to my Buckeyes. I do not. There's no justice. I'm telling you.
Jesus. Toledo, despite losing, the best team in the country.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of SEC teams losing, we were so high on Texas A&M and down on Auburn. Look what happens.
I know.
Auburn knocks off the Aggies 26-10.
I don't know
what's going on in the middle ranges of the SEC right now.
I think they're watching too much NFL football and they're going, hey, you know what? We can be as goofy as the NFL. I don't know.
I don't even want to talk about that.
Because here's Auburn. All of a sudden, they were terrible. Now they're 5-4. They're probably going to go to a bowl game, and they win a couple more, and all of a sudden, maybe the Iron Bowl's not the pushover we think it is. So who knows?
Wouldn't that be like Auburn in a terrible season knocks off Alabama?
It's happened before, I think.
Yeah, but, as fun as it is, for the playoff's sake, I'd rather not.
Oh, I believe me. As an Ohio State fan, I'll do anything to get Alabama out of that playoff.
Well, you beat them last year, so
I know, but I don't want to have to try to do it twice in a row.
Northwestern continues to make that Stanford loss look better with a 23-21 win over Penn State.
This was a pretty good game. I watched some of this. It was a pretty good game.
The thing, I watched a little bit of it too. Northwestern, their uniforms need help.
Oh yeah.
I like the idea of the Northwestern stripe across his chest, but the dark purple on the black,
right?
You can't see it.
No, I didn't even notice. I thought, did they change their look until I got a close-up shot? I'm like, oh, it's still there. You just can't see it from a distant shot.
UCLA with a shutout over the Beavs, 41-0. Oregon State's 0-6 in Pac-12 play. Thanks for playing, Beavers. And Houston stays undefeated with a 33-30 win over Cincinnati. And just full disclosure, we are doing this before the rankings come out, scheduling purposes.
Well, should we do a really quick prediction just to see how close we get to the rankings this time around?
Sure. I think Oh, man, I want to put Alabama number 1, but I don't know if they will. I'll go Clemson 1, Alabama 2. I'll keep Ohio State at 3, and I'll put Notre Dame in at 4.
I think that's exactly the way I was going to do it. Clemson 1 because they're undefeated, Alabama 2, Ohio State 3, Notre Dame 4.
I think that makes the most sense right now. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if Alabama were to take that top spot, but that would just be a disservice to Clemson, who you rank them number 1 in your overall rankings. They go out and beat a ranked team in that first week. There's no reason to move them down.
I agree.
So, despite how impressive Alabama looked, just based on principle, I'd leave Clemson at number 1. Move on to the NFL, and Greg, if there's one thing I've learned about the NFL this season, it's I don't know anything about the NFL this season. That
makes 2 of us.
Sometimes we think at this point it's like, okay, I can start to understand what's happening. I don't. We know the Patriots, good. Bengals, good. Panthers proved they passed their 2 tests. I'm going to say that the Panthers are pretty good right now.
Yep.
But everybody else, who's bad? Who's bad? Who's medium? Who's in between? I don't know. I don't know.
We know who's bad. We know that Cleveland's bad. We know that Detroit's bad. Probably safe to say that San Diego and Chicago are bad.
Well, Chicago, I don't think Chicago's as bad.
Nah, probably not Cleveland or Detroit bad, but probably not a playoff contender. Then we've got the 4 good teams. We've got Denver, New England, Cincinnati, and Carolina. And everybody else in between there, it could go in a million different directions. Just a million different directions. There's just no way to know at this point. And usually, by this point in the season, we at least have an idea of the hierarchy of teams. And we don't right now. We have 3 or 4 at the top, a couple at the bottom, and in the middle,
everybody else.
Everybody else, yeah.
There are so many options for wildcard teams at this point. It's just, I was going to go look at the standings, but it's not worth it. Just because it's going to change so much in the next 2-3 weeks. That
I was just going to say, whatever we say today will be completely irrelevant by this time next week, so why bother?
Yeah. Let's start on Thursday, where the Bengals continue to be undefeated, 31-10 over your Browns.
They ain't my Browns anymore.
They're one ugly game, to be sure, but the Bengals.
See, I didn't think the Brownies looked that bad in the all-white. I thought they looked pretty good. Other than the Browns, see, that's the thing. If they could get rid of that stupid Browns on the leg, that would have been a fine-looking uniform. I have no problem with that. Just a whole lot
of orange.
That's true. Yeah. That's always been the case. But what was I listening to? I think it was Bill Simmons with Cousin Sal. Mm-hmm. The Browns, how many top 10 picks have they had in the last, pretty much in their entire existence?
And they've just squandered them?
Every single time. You think the law of big numbers at some point would say, hey, you know what? They accidentally put it together. No.
Well, the other thing they said is, which I agree with, you're 2-7 at this point. Why are you even trotting out Josh McCown anymore?
I don't know. He's
not your quarterback of the future. He's not going to lead this team back into some respectable standing. Johnny Manziel, who knows, he's up and down. You may not want to commit to him, but at least play him and see if you want to even invest in him at all.
I think that the front office of that team knows that they just don't have a quarterback. Manziel, I thought it was a bad pick when they made it. Mm-hmm. He's done nothing to make me think he's ever going to get any better. And like they said on the Bill Simmons podcast, he looks like Peter Dinklage out there compared to everybody else.
Yeah, he is pretty tiny. Even when, there's other small quarterbacks like Russell Wilson or Drew Brees, but they don't look like Manziel does.
It's like a little kid out there. There's another way to put it, but they're just a terrible team. And I wish I could tell Browns fans that you have something to look forward to in the future, but history doesn't give me any indication that that's going to be the case.
No,
it's just a bad organization. And I talked about the football gods earlier. Maybe the football gods are like, hey, you know what? There were only ever one Cleveland Browns and you guys ain't it. And I don't know. I'd change the name and everything else if I were them.
Yeah, I think you just get rid of the franchise and start again.
Pretty much.
Maybe they should do what they did the first time. Just send these Browns to somewhere else. And, just wait 3-4 years and then give them a new one. Mm-hmm. See if they can try again.
And you don't want any part of the history of this team or anything else. Just that's it. We're going to be the Cleveland whatevers and go forward.
Send these Browns to London.
Yeah.
And you can start a new Cleveland Browns.
No more Cleveland Browns. I think that was
they have to keep them.
Okay. All right.
You know that.
The only way that the football gods will be satisfied is if the Ravens move back to Cleveland. That's the only way this is ever going to be fixed. Short of that, it's going to always be a disaster as long as that team's in existence. Anyway,
move on to Sunday, and we'll stay in your neck of the woods again, Greg. We'll talk about your Packers as 2 weeks in a row, 2 big losses to undefeated teams now as the Panthers and Cam Newton. What a performance he's had so far. 37-29. It was 27-7 at half. Panthers were in control of this thing all the way from the start. Cam Newton, 4 total touchdowns on the day. Panthers are rolling. Panthers are good.
I think we can officially designate them a good team. And this Packers
defense
team
is strong. They can run the ball, and Cam Newton, despite some crappy receivers, manages to find guys to throw to.
The Packers have just glaring deficiencies on defense that they need to address.
That run defense is bad.
I've been harping on it all season, and sure, when a team's 6-0, you look at it and you go, well, how can he be harping on them? They can't be that bad. They're not a good team. I've been saying it all along. If you look at who they beat up to this point, the only good team I'd say they've beaten at this point is the Rams. And that game was a lot closer than it probably should have been, and I don't know if that's because the Packers didn't play well. I think the Rams are just that good. At home against the right opponent, the Packers can trick you into thinking, hey, they're a Super Bowl contender, but we've seen it. You put them up against a team with a good defense on the road and forget it. It's over. They're not as good as we think they are. Simple as that.
Well, it's the big thing for the Packers still. They're currently tied on top of the division. They're not leading the division anymore.
No, they're tied with my irrational confidence Vikings.
The Vikings are. And they still have to play the Vikings twice.
Yes.
Including in week 17. So this thing could be scary for the Green Bay Packers. I don't think they're going to miss the playoffs.
No, but
anything like that. But
I'm not planning on buying my shareholders ring at the end of the season or anything. I can tell you that.
Yeah. So what does Green Bay need to do? Aaron Rodgers still 369, 4 touchdowns. It's not like the offense is terrible.
Here's what I think. Okay, first off, I think that the absence of Jordy Nelson it looked like it wasn't going to be that bad because James Jones stepped in for a while. And
where'd he go?
And then you've got, Randall, don't call me Reggie Cobb. And, what's his name? The other Rodgers, the tight end's playing pretty well.
Yeah.
But he can't really throw deep anymore because there's not a guy that can get that separation needed to throw the long ball. That's one problem. Problem number 2, and I know he's a Super Bowl winning coach and all that, you got to get rid of Mike McCarthy. This team is as good as it's ever going to get under his leadership. It's as simple as that. And 3, you've got to fix that defense. Clay Matthews can't do it by himself. Julius Peppers can't do it by himself. They've got a lot of problems, and they just don't seem to want to address it. And here we are. That's what I think needs to happen. They're going to be like this. I think they'll be okay, but I wouldn't be planning on any Super Bowl trips in the near future.
Cam Newton, the MVP so far? For you?
Of football?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. I mean, you're going to get Tom Brady talk's always going to be there.
Right, and Brady's been great, and the Patriots are undefeated, and of course he should get that ranking. But I think Cam Newton, in terms of most valuable player to his team, Cam Newton's been it.
Definitely. No question about it.
This season.
No question about it. He's doing all the things that people hoped he could do when he was drafted. He's just and again, I know everybody likes to, let's compare a black quarterback to a black quarterback. He reminds me of a young Ben Roethlisberger. Simple as that.
Yeah.
He doesn't remind me of Michael Vick. They don't play a thing alike.
No.
And then somebody compared Jameis Winston to Cam Newton, which I think is a fair comparison, but again, you're just looking at a Ben Roethlisberger type. But yeah, I think he's got to be in the conversation. Absolutely. This is a good football team. They're going to be trouble.
You have a problem with him tearing down the banner, the Packers banner? All the controversy that's come from that.
I don't care. I don't care. You know what? They probably deserved it because after somebody scored a touchdown in that game, and I think it was Cam wanted to give the ball to a fan, and one of the Packers linemen threw the ball off the field.
It was Julius Peppers, former Panther.
Okay, well then you know what? So turnabout's fair play. I got no problem with any of it. No. I like it when this kind of stuff happens. It shows they care a little bit.
Yeah. Sticking with our theme of undefeated teams, the Patriots continue to roll 27-10 over Washington. Just a ho-hum, ready to go, 299, 2-touchdown performance from Tom Brady. Whatever. Patriots,
pretty
fine.
much did what they had to do to win the game.
Yeah. It's like there's no point even talking about the Patriots. Just say they won again in case you were wondering, and then you move on.
It'll be newsworthy when they lose.
It'll be newsworthy even if they play a tight game. Whatever. Patriots are just going to keep doing what they're going to do. They're going to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. They're going to be hosting the AFC title game. They might just win the AFC again because that's just what they do.
Right.
But we go with the team that has fallen from the ranks of the unbeaten. The Denver Broncos.
How about your Colts?
They win in Indianapolis. I ripped the Colts last week. Ripped them. Said I wanted Peyton to string us up by our bootstraps, tell us what was what, just incinerate this stupid football team. And what do they go and do? They go and play their best 60 minutes of football all year and beat the Broncos pretty well. 27-24.
And I think that that was at that point that I texted you and said it's official. I don't know anything about the NFL now.
Like, the Colts were up 17-0 over the Broncos.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is happening? Where was this team against Carolina? Where was this team the first few weeks of the season? Who are you? And then the Broncos, they made it tight. They get that punt return at the end of the first half, and they come back. They get 10 points in the third quarter to tie it up, 17-7. And the Colts just outlast them, and they get their win. So they get their one out of division win. So we're going to finish at least 7-9. That's going to be enough to win this division. And the Broncos get their first loss. And the Broncos, who last week that defense looked so good and the offense looked like it was clicking against the Packers, they go into Indy and it doesn't hit the same way as it did against Green Bay a week ago.
Well, that's because I don't think that Green Bay is as good as we think they are. They were at home, which helps too. But this Colts team, if they could keep playing like this, hey, you know what? Who knows? But I'm going to call this an aberration. I don't think they figured anything out. I don't know what happened here. I'm glad they won. I like to see it, but I can't figure it out. I mean, Frank Gore, for God's sakes, 28 carries, 83 yards, and a touchdown. he couldn't run to the sidelines without falling down before this point in the season. I don't get it.
He's like the 6th or 7th leading rusher in the league.
Yeah, I heard that too, and that blew my mind.
Yeah.
Just blew my mind.
Every week I'm like, this guy's not good. He's old. He's not good. He's old. Oh, he's 8th in the league in rushing.
Yeah.
What? When? How?
I don't know either, because it seems like he was rushing for 30 yards a game every week. I don't know how it happened.
Yeah, the thing, though, concerning me now, Andrew Luck, despite a good game this week, we thought he had been hurting. He is indeed hurting.
Well,
he's out 2 to 6 weeks with a lacerated kidney and partial tear of an abdominal muscle.
Well, that's it. They're done.
The Colts are done?
Yeah.
It's 2 to 6 weeks. Matt Hasselbeck won some games.
Well, yeah. Well, he was playing with cracked ribs for 3 weeks, too.
Right. Well, and I don't know if he got hurt in this game, if that was it, but this got to be part of it. But so here's the next few weeks. They're at the Falcons. They're against the Bucks.
Yeah, the Falcons aren't good. The Bucks are frisky. I'm gonna put the frisky label on them.
Steelers, Jaguars, Texans.
Steelers, who knows?
Titans. Easy schedule.
Yeah. If you've got to lose Andrew Luck, that's the schedule you want, I would say.
Yeah, and you gotta. Hasselbeck was good in the couple games he played. Rallied the teams to victories. I think they can still win the division. Oh yeah, yeah. But even with Luck out for a few weeks, and it's 2 to 6, so that's kind of a big window. If it's just 2, and he misses the Falcons and Buccaneers, comes back for the Steelers game, okay, then yeah, sure.
Where is the Steelers game being played?
Pittsburgh.
Okay, that makes it a little bit tougher.
And Roethlisberger's out a couple weeks now too.
Yeah, with a sprained foot, which I don't know. I don't know. I think that it's really weird. They're kind of similar in that respect. These two guys, Roethlisberger and Luck, have been beaten half to death this season. They still keep coming back for more.
Yeah.
If it remember me, I'm like, I've got a lot of money in the bank. I think I might just go home at this point. But
yeah, but hey, the Colts.
But, yeah, what do you think?
Where they come from? I don't know. They get the win.
Yeah,
4-5
in a game that I don't think anybody in the world would have predicted them to win.
No. I mean, they beat. You want to know the best part? They're 3-0 against Peyton since he left. Now, like, what the hell is that?
Of course they are.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me.
Well, the first year that they beat him? Was it that? I don't know. They played remember was that stretch where they played like 2 perfect football games in 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Where they beat San Francisco and then they beat Denver and they just looked fantastic doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they beat them in Indy a couple of years, those years ago, 2 years ago now, I guess. They beat them in the playoffs, beat them this year. I don't know.
Well, hey, maybe they just need to keep playing Peyton Manning and they'll be all right.
Well, yeah, I think this is Peyton's last hurrah. He's not going to be good enough to play another season.
No.
It's not there. Yeah. So those are the unbeaten teams. Those are the teams that we thought are good. And, the Broncos are still probably pretty good, I guess, when Peyton Manning's on.
Yeah, I think they're still good. I'm going to give them the good nod still.
Yeah, I think
no one's going to go undefeated. You're going to lose somewhere along the way. And when you're that good to start the season, no matter who you lose to, short of a team that's one of the other good teams, people are going to look at it as an upset. So I'm not too worried about the Broncos.
We keep bringing up Bill Simmons, but he brought up an interesting point. You think the Broncos should just sit Peyton a couple games, like the San Antonio Spurs do with Tim Duncan and that? Sit him in a game they think they can get, and give Brock Osweiler some reps or something.
I think it's the worst idea I've ever heard.
Because I think the other thing now at this point is if the Bengals stay undefeated and the Patriots stay undefeated, they're not getting a bye.
No,
but the Broncos do play the Bengals at some point. So you're not going to finish worse than the Colts are right now. You're far and away leading the division. Why don't you could probably say, you know what, Peyton, use this as a bye week. It's not going to hurt us in terms of our playoff seeding or having a home game or the division. Just take a week off.
I think if it gets to the point where it is readily apparent that they're not going to get a bye, you really got to consider it, and I don't think it hurts a thing. Let's say that you're just, at this point you're slotted into that third seed, you're not getting the bye. What the hell harm does it? Win or lose doesn't matter. And let's be honest about it. There's nobody behind them that's going to catch up to them. So sure, why not? I think it's a great idea actually, because he's old, and set him down, let him get healthy, and who knows what he can do once the playoffs start. I don't think it's the worst idea I've ever heard.
Yeah, I mean, looking at their schedule, Chiefs, Bears, Patriots, Chargers, Raiders, Steelers, Bengals, Chargers.
Ooh, well, there's really not a game in there that you can look at and go, that's an easy win without
Charger
him.
Games.
Chargers, I suppose, yeah.
Chargers, Bears.
Yeah. But
again, it depends on what the Bengals do, because they don't actually play the Bengals till the second to last week of the season, so that could determine the bye if things are still as they are.
I think it's a good idea. I just don't know that they're ever going to be in a position where they can safely pull it off.
Yeah.
Maybe as things progress, but you never know.
Let's run through the rest of these things because I don't really want to talk about the rest of the NFL. The Saints, we thought they were good. They were turning it around. Lose to the Titans at home in overtime, 34-28.
But that's because the Titans have a new coach. They got rid of Ken Wisenhunt.
Right, that's the problem.
So maybe they will be the Dolphins, and they will turn it around. My irrational confidence coming back just a little bit for my Titans here, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Not that they're going to turn it around, but I think they will be better losing that idiot. I will say that.
Yeah. Speaking of the Dolphins, they lose again to the Bills, 33-17. Bills are 4-4. I think they're in a wild card spot now.
They're in the hunt. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I guess they're tied with the Raiders at 4-4. The Jets are 5-3.
Yeah, the Raiders, they lost a tough one yesterday. Whew.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Raiders right now. 38-35. They lose to the Steelers. Big win for the Steelers to stay ahead. I guess the Steelers are the other wild card team right now. With the Jets, 5-4. Ben Roethlisberger, as we said, goes out. But this is a game that the Raiders, if they wanted to be in contention for a possible wild card spot, this is one you got to have.
Got to have it. Yep.
So tough loss for the.
But I still don't think they're out of it yet, just because the AFC is pretty bad.
Yeah, the Bills could easily lose games. The Jets could easily lose games. The Steelers could easily lose games.
Jets are firmly in the driver's seat right now in the first wild card spot hunt with the 5-3 record.
Right, but the Jets
in 3 weeks we could be talking about the Jets being on the outside looking in, because you just don't know.
Yeah, those Jets, they beat the Jaguars 28-23. They're 5-3. And as you said, in control of the wild card picture right now.
But real quick on the wild card contenders, every one of these teams has a game that they've lost that they should have won. I just can't stress how important it is. You've got to go out and beat the teams that you're supposed to beat.
Bills, Jets, Steelers, Dolphins,
every one of them. Yep. I mean, where are the Steelers at if they win last week? Instead, I forget who they lost to, but if they had won,
they lost to.
I don't remember.
Oh, pulling it up. They lost to.
Was it Arizona? No, they played Cleveland.
Bengals.
Lost to the Bengals. Okay, well
they've lost to the Bengals and the Chiefs.
Yeah, the Chiefs loss is the one that's going to haunt them, I think.
What about the Ravens game in overtime?
That one too. That's one they really should have never let get away from them. Yeah.
So tough, but hey.
Yeah. Anyway.
Your irrational confidence Vikings, they pull one out in overtime over my irrational confidence Rams. 21-18 in overtime. The Vikings, like we mentioned earlier, they pull into a tie and I guess hold the tiebreaker for some reason, right, currently.
Probably a record against common opponents, I would think. No, that can't be it.
It's probably something about, record against the division or record
that's probably what it is.
The conference.
But the Packers have lost to the Broncos and the and the Panthers, so they both have to be undefeated in conference. I don't know.
Well, the Panthers are a conference team, but yeah.
I mean division. I'm saying division. I'm sorry. Maybe it's the conference thing. Maybe that's the difference.
No, it doesn't matter right now.
Right.
But technically, the Vikings are in first place.
Exactly.
How about that?
My irrational confidence. One of my irrational confidence picks finally paying off. I knew it would happen after 3 years. It had to.
But this was a big loss for the Rams. They were in wild card contention. They still are, but they could have been 5-3 instead of 4-4.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big difference in terms of the wild card right now. Especially, I think it's a little bit more defined in the NFC.
Yeah,
but or it's not, because there's some teams that are falling quickly.
I think the Rams are still okay, because really the only other good team that they're kind of battling with would be the Vikings or the Packers at this point.
Well, I mean, yeah, but the Falcons are 6-3.
I don't think they're going to stay that way. The Giants, they're 5-4, but they're playing for a division title right now. They're not worried about a wild card, because there's no way a wild card comes out of the NFC East, or probably the NFC South for that matter. So the Rams aren't done just yet.
No, not yet. Where was I? Okay. Scroll on down. Talk about those Giants. You just said them. They're leading the division now after a 32-18 win over the Buccaneers. Pretty good comeback for the Giants after losing that tough one to the Saints last week.
Yeah, and
now you look, the Saints go lose to the Titans, and if you're the Giants, you say, "What the hell? Should have had that game. We just let it go at the end."
The Giants have had a few games this year that, had they won, they'd be in a lot better shape. But
we mentioned the Falcons too.
Jeez.
Blaine Gabbert, yeah. Gets a win for the 49ers, 17-16 over the Falcons. The Falcons,
yeah. Started out 6-0, and look at them now. They've lost 3 straight.
They started 5-0.
Oh, was it 5-0?
5-0, yeah.
Blaine Gabbert, number 2 on your programs, number 1 on your heart. Come on.
Jesus, man. So stupid.
I don't get this league.
These are the games that played into. I don't understand what football is right now.
Right.
I don't know why the Colts won. I know why the Colts won, but the Titans beat the Saints. I thought the Dolphins were better, and they lose to the Bills. The Vikings are 6-2. The Raiders lost that game to the Steelers. The Falcons lose to the freaking Blaine Gabbert. What the hell is going on?
It's just there's some good teams and a lot of just mediocre mixed in the middle. It's not like it was not even 5 years ago. Wild card teams would hop in and win the Super Bowl. That's not going to happen this year.
No,
it's not.
Unless something really weird happens, but the best teams are the best teams right now.
Yeah, there's a big separation between good and mediocre in this league.
Yeah, and speaking of really mediocre, the Sunday night game, it was an entertaining game, won in overtime by the Eagles, 33-27. The Eagles, good. They improved to 4-4. The Cowboys remain winless without Tony Romo.
Yeah, we said 4-4 they needed to go in those 8 games. 0-6, so they can't do the 4-4.
Or they're 0-6.
Yeah. The Eagles, another win, but again, I'm just not impressed.
No,
I'm not. I'm taking this from somebody else. I don't remember who said it, but Sam Bradford can throw 5-yard passes, and he hopes that the guys run a long way in the yards after catch. That's how they score. I'm not sold on this Eagles team at all. Not at all. But the Cowboys, I think the Cowboys, they're done, aren't they?
Oh.
I mean, I will say this, though. Des Bryant made a hell of a play.
Yeah, Des Bryant made the hell of a play for the Hail Mary, but yeah, I think even if whenever Romo comes back, isn't he supposed to be back by now?
I'm thinking, well, they said 8 weeks, so we still got 2 to go.
We still got 2 more.
Right.
So what's Dallas got? The Buccaneers and the Dolphins, and the way the Cowboys are playing, those are games they could easily lose. Well,
and we're automatically assuming, too, that just because Tony Romo comes back, they become unbeatable. That's not proven to be the case. Other than last year, that's not necessarily the case.
And even if it's even 8 weeks, say he comes back in that 9th week, they're playing the Panthers that week on Thanksgiving.
Right.
In their color rush uniforms.
Yeah. God.
And then they finish up at the Redskins, at the Packers, Jets, Bills, Washington again.
Yeah, I mean.
I don't know. I don't even think Tony Romo, when he comes back, could pull this team out of it.
No, I think they're done.
Currently, they're, 2.5 behind the Giants, technically? 3 in the win column, 2 in the loss column.
Well, yeah, I mean, if he comes back, it makes them more competitive, definitely, but they aren't guaranteed wins the minute he comes back. That's the thing that I think people are forgetting when they talk about, well, they'll be okay once Romo gets back. Well, sure, they'll be better,
Well, the thing that sucks for them, the only team that they can catch up on their own, they still have to play Washington twice. But they already played the Giants twice and they played the Eagles twice. They went 1-1 against both of them.
Well,
they lost their shot to stay in this thing or claw back into it.
I'm going to say they're done. I think they're done. I think Romo comes back or not. I don't think I'm sorry, but I just don't think they're going to be. I don't even
think a wild card spot would be.
No, maybe, but I just don't see it happening.
Maybe, but doubtful.
Right.
Very doubtful.
Yeah, I'm going to scratch them off the list. I think they're done.
Yeah. And that's too bad because I thought the Cowboys were probably going to be pretty good this season. They started out 2-0. They looked fine. And, you lose Des Bryant and Tony Romo back-to-back weeks. It's rough.
I had them going to the Super Bowl this year and beating your Colts.
I think I did too.
I had them losing to your Colts, but still.
Yeah. But, I heard some people were like, a 6-game losing streak, they should fire Jason Garrett. Like, this isn't his fault.
No.
Brandon Weeden and Matt Castle.
Right.
You can only do so much.
And that play that Bryant made on the Hail Mary, I mean, that was a fantastic play by Des Bryant. Dumbest pass you're going to see in a while.
Yeah, and not to mention all the other garbage that's gone on with their defense and Greg Hardy.
Oh, for Pete's sake, yeah.
It's been kind of a garbage pail season for.
And just real quick too, I want to go back to the Falcons game for a second. Did Mike Smith come back to coach that team again?
Yeah, right. That was
what a dumb play to kick the field goal there with 3 minutes to go.
You're on the 2, 3 minutes left.
Idiotic.
Down by 4.
Idiotic. Just idiotic.
You kick the field goal instead of going for the touchdown, or if you don't get it, then and he said after the game, well, I trusted in our defense.
No.
If you really trust in that defense, you put them with the team on the 2. Go get a safety or give us the ball back.
Right. I mean, if you really trust your defense that much, don't you trust them more at the 2 than you do at the 35 or whatever? I don't know. It was just a dumb play. Wow.
Yeah. And then on Monday night, two 6-in teams played. The Bears won in front of their home crowd in San Diego, 22-19.
Yeah.
Follow us on all of our platforms: Stitcher, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, everything. Find us, listen, you'll enjoy it. For Greg, I'm Zach. This has been basically a football show. We will talk to you next weekend. Enjoy the footballs.
Good evening and welcome, everybody. I'm Kirk Herbstreit along with Brent Musburger.